Chula! Thank you so much for clicking onto this video. If you are new here, hi, hello, my name is Kai, and if you're coming back to my channel, I just wanted to hop on here real quick to, one, apologize, and two, correct myself from the video that I posted yesterday. So it's like I said on Instagram, sometimes I feel like I do have the caliber of an amateur journalist. Oh my god, I might regret saying that someday, like literally today. And other days, I am just a person with access to the internet. And sometimes I say things and I try to take accountability for the things that I say because I understand that it's so important to be factual. Because I got some of the details wrong with the Rebekahvardy case, I just wanted to make sure that I did correct that and set the record straight, that I just got a couple of details just sort of mixed up and confused with other situations that are going on right now. So the long and short of it basically is that Rebekahvardy is a person who is living in the UK. She grew up a Jehovah's Witness for like the first 15 years of her life, and she experienced a lot of trauma in the organization, primarily being the victim of CSA from a person who was actually not a Jehovah's Witness, but was in fact just a stranger, not even connected to Watchtower. But the major issue with her case is that when she reported this abuse to the elders, they discouraged her from going to the police. You know, people who can actually do something about the situation. And so I did just want to comment a little bit now that I have that corrected context, because I think that it does definitely change our conversation a little bit. I actually took the liberty of locating the documentary, which I will have that video shared in the pinned comment down below so you can take a look at that for yourself. And I highly recommend that you do, because this is a very powerful documentary, and you can tell that Rebekah really thought about a lot of aspects of the religion when she was filming this. She talked to multiple different people, who all had different experiences with the organization, and she really tried to get as many different perspectives as possible. And she even conducted her own little study on the effects of disfellowshipping or shunning that occurs when somebody leaves the organization. Now, previously, there hasn't really been any data on this. Nobody's really done a formal study on this situation, even though I think it would be really beneficial to have that information. She went ahead and did like her own little study, and while her sample size is relatively small, I think that it gives us a huge window into what the Watchtower organization is really putting people through, and the emotional trauma that is just, you know, it lives with you for almost the rest of your life for most of us. So it's really important that she was able to make those connections with as many people as she did, and that we have some grasp on the true gravity and the consequences of how Watchtower behaves and how they treat their members, and specifically their ex-members. What I really hated about Rebekah's story is that she was courageous enough to go to the elders, and these were people that she had been taught to believe were there to look after her, to protect her, that these people were safe, and they literally entrust these men with their eternal spiritual guidance. So when she brought up her abuse to the elders, they were like, okay, that sucks, that's sad, sorry, but like, what do you want us to do? And they didn't give her any guidance or counseling. In fact, they reprimanded her for having been in that situation, which we have heard before, and we know the damage that that does to a victim. To be told that you are somehow at fault for your abuse, for having a literal crime committed against you, that could even begin to be your fault, and that in the eyes of God it would be your fault. That comes along with so many other questions that of course these elders won't answer, probably can't answer, because it's all nonsense and it's cruel and certainly not a heavenly arrangement. We've talked about this briefly on my channel, that Watchtower sort of has this little little get out of jail free card, where basically in their Shepherd the Flock book, the little instruction manual that is given to the elders that is kept secret from the majority of the congregation, they have instructions on how to handle cases of CSA. And when it gets to the bit about contacting the police, the Jehovah's Witness elders are instructed to first call the legal department, which is incorrect. And then, if the legal department says that they have to call the police, then they will call law enforcement. But if it's in one of those states where they have this clergy penitent privilege, they're not required to do anything about it. They don't take it to the police out of the goodness of their heart, out of their conscience that I feel like should tell everyone to bring that to the police. And instead, they just say, well, you know, whatever, forever. But what Rebecca goes into in her documentary is the social pressure that is felt among the congregation to not report these instances. And it got me to thinking that so much of being a Jehovah's Witness is all about your reputation. And when that reputation is tarnished, suddenly you become almost as bad as outsiders, and they start treating you accordingly. And that in and of itself is completely dehumanizing, but also to avoid the damage, the trauma, to avoid having to go through such a horrific experience as being disfellowshipped or even being soft shunned. I can imagine that a lot of people would just sweep things under the rug just to keep it business as usual. That is a huge element of this that I don't think people acknowledge as much as we should. It's not even necessarily that the guidelines, like the official guidelines of the organization, are targeting victims, but it's also the culture that they have cultivated. And this whole, facade of secrecy that they seem to think that they dwell in, where if a matter is kept secret, then Jehovah's name has not been besmirched. You have not brought reproach upon his name and the organization, and you just go on with your life thinking, well, Jehovah will correct the matter. It's ironic to me that now, because they have spent so much time trying to maintain this perfect little picture, that they have inadvertently created a worse problem that looks even worse for them. Play dumb games, win dumb prizes. I don't know what else to say. But the two main takeaways for this is basically that the new understanding, the new requirements of what it means to be a Jehovah's Witness has so many implications that I honestly just don't think that they even cared to think about, because it obviously had to be such a spur of the moment thing for them to suddenly try to distance themselves away from victims. It just doesn't really make sense in the grand scheme of things, because now you have to think about it. Like, now all the children in the organization, you've just condemned them to die in Armageddon, because if you believe that only Jehovah's Witnesses will be saved, then I think of course you have to believe that if your child isn't baptized during Armageddon, that Jehovah is gonna murder your child. Isn't that a crazy thing to think and believe and teach? And the second takeaway, and I think that this is actually really critical, is that even if the perpetrator wasn't a Jehovah's Witness, the child was still failed to be protected. Because you have to think that in any problem that you have in your life as a Jehovah's Witness, you are always instructed to talk to the elders first. So in an instance where the elders are allowed to just forget about it, just to say, oh, this doesn't actually concern us, then they're still neglecting that child. The ultimate message of this to me is that we absolutely need more states to strike down this clergy penitent privilege. It doesn't make sense to me that just because you confess something horrible to a religious person, that's just okay, and that you actually won't be held responsible or accountable for the things that you do. And I understand that it is a core tenet of some faiths to be able to have that protected space with their pastor, their priest, their whomever it is. But I think that there could be exceptions to the rule, because let's take, for example, teachers. Now, I've had a lot of sensitive conversations with teachers that I had in the past. Obviously, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, a lot of them were kind of worried about me. And I've talked to them about, sensitive things. But if I had said anything like I was being physically abused, I was being sexually abused, something of that magnitude, then they would immediately have to file a report. Why? Because they are mandated reporters. And so it's not as if they're taking away the whole concept of confessions and bearing your soul to your spiritual leader or whatever. They're not trying to take that away from you. They're just trying to take away loopholes that are allowing literal pedophiles to continue harming children. Not even children that are just in your church, in your organization, but children everywhere. Whether or not Watchtower can actually be found liable in a court of law is yet to still be seen, but I'm really hoping that Rebecca can come to some kind of closure to this situation, because it's obvious that this has just deeply burdened her for a long time, and it's a pure masterpiece, in my opinion, that really analyzes a lot of aspects of the organization and what it truly does to people. That was just my thought, just my feeling, and just my video. So if you like this video, then you can leave it a like, and if you like me, well then you can subscribe to my channel, where I will be talking about whatever I want, whenever I want, because this is my channel, and that's what we do here, baby. So subscribe, and as always, chulas, I hope that you are having a beautiful, wonderful, amazing rest of your day.